4P360. What the heck is 4P360? Well, I'm Scott Conway, PhD, JD, whole crazy resume with mothersraisingsons.com. And what is 4P360? It is my proprietary leadership system. It is my proprietary leadership system that I will teach in corporations, or I will certify people to teach it on my behalf if you come to a 1-week certification training. So this is some pretty high-end stuff, and it's meant for high-level corporate leadership. However, besides high-level corporate leadership and high-end government leadership, the same system is applicable to parenting. I'm going to tell you a story about why I'm doing this presentation in the next lesson. But right now I want to talk about what is 4P360. 4P360 stands for 4-pillar, that's the 4P, 4-pillar, 360-degree leadership. And in a 360-degree leadership, there's a double O feature in there I'm going to get to in a later lesson. So the 4 pillars, what are the 4 pillars of the 4P 360-degree leadership? Pillar number 1 is powerful. Pillar number 2 is practical. Pillar number 3 is principled. And pillar number 4 is positive. And in this lesson, I'm going to talk briefly about each one of the 4 pillars. Pillar number 1, powerful. That means the technique must actually work. That it must be able to at least produce the results it's intended to produce, so you're not just going through motions, wasting your time, just following procedures and not getting an outcome. Practical. That's pillar number 2, means there must be an actual application for it. That you have to be able to actually use it in real situations that actually come up, and that the powerful results produced actually move things forward. Because there are powerful things someone can do that might actually get the immediate job done, but might not be terribly practical, that they'll do a lot of damage along the way. Now, a parenting example of this is actually pretty easy. Being abusive to your child. That could be powerful. You can make the argument as powerful. Right here, right now, it might get the particular momentary job done. It's not terribly practical, though, because it's going to do damage. It's going to tear apart what really ought to be any loving parent's long-term objectives. It's going to destroy the child. It's going to destroy the relationship. It's going to ripple down to the grandchildren unless we have a solid, powerful intervention to undo some of that damage that was done. So while someone could argue and justify and rationalize that there's power there, it's really not practical. It's not producing practical results. Not to mention it's violating the 3rd and the 4th pillars as well. The 3rd pillar is principle. That means it works a certain way for a reason. And that means that you have good reasons for doing it, and the system that makes the individual techniques works and functions on larger rules we call principles. While I was in Chicago, a gentleman was telling me about a business application of the 4P360. Part of it is how to end business relationships. And he said, well, that won't work in my particular case. You know, it was a short counseling session, and so I was working with him as a coach. And I asked him, well, tell me a little bit more about your particular situation. And he explained some of the details, that he was in a very combative, very negative situation in a very negative, toxic culture. And that if he ended the relationship the last time, he tried to do it well, and it ended up backfiring him. It turned really bad. The person lashed back at him and did some damage to his business. So all I did is I took the same principle. I thought, okay, because it's the 4 pillars, we take this principled pillar. It's not the individual technique that's the key, it's the principle. So let's take this individual technique. Let's break this tool into 3 separate pieces. Step 1, you do the setup. Step 2, you do the clarification. Step 3, you finish the technique in 3 separate meetings. And he had to admit that that would work. And it's because it's principled. It works on principles. So it's not just memorize this technique, memorize these words to say, and you're good to go. If you understand the principles, then you can tweak the individual tools so you apply it to specific situations. Number 4 is positive. Now, positive has 2 different aspects of it. The most obvious part of positive is that it moves the connection forward rather than apart. It builds relationship rather than tears relationship apart. That it's nice rather than mean. That you express a desire to connect with someone, to help someone, to move things forward rather than to rip things apart. You're talking about where you are going as opposed to where you are going, which is the second part of the positive, is the positive picture of what you do want rather than a negative picture of what you don't want. And so you're talking about where you are going, not where you're not going. You're talking about where you're going toward, not what you're just trying to run away from. Now, there might be a little bit of that so that you can define what it is you've got and that you're trying to fix this, but let's focus on define where you are going. So those are the 4 pillars of the 4P360. Now, in the next lesson, we're going to talk about, well, what is the 360? What is this double O feature? And I'm going to tell you the story about how my proprietary 4P360 leadership has ended up here with mothersraisingsons.com.